basically, we are going to explain SNG. We're going to explain the breakdowns of it, why SNG, before even we're gonna, even if Moto Grip is still a thing, why SNG is so effective, and then we're also going to break it down so that you guys know how to explain it and train it. So, at the very beginning of this, when we talk about our SNG face-offs, standing neutral grip was a mostly bottom sidewall dominant stance. And the reason it was mostly bottom sidewall is because Moto Grip is completely over the top sidewall dominant. So SNG was super effective at getting underneath stuff. So when we talk about the stance, we want the stance to have the same principles as the knee down stance that we teach. We have our feet loaded. We're on an angle towards our opponent. We're lined up here, okay? The right foot has to be to the left of the plastic. So wherever the plastic starts on your head, depending on which head you buy and where the throat is, and we'll go over that stuff later, your feet and your whole body have to be to the left of that. So when guys line up, they want to make sure their foot is about 6 inches behind your right hand and as close to the neutral zone as you can get. And then your left foot, which we call your drive foot, is towards the end of the butt end. And in a standard knee down stance, you want a good combination. You want your left hand to basically be almost where your elbow lines up with the butt end. But in standing neutral grip stance, we actually tell guys to line their left hand a little bit lower so you have more leverage, because standing neutral grip is way more about bringing your left hand up, so you don't need as much range of motion coming around as you would if you're going knee down, okay? Now, standing neutral grip, we tell guys, if you want to be as diverse as possible, you want to hold the stick really tight in your finger knuckles. If you're holding it in your palm, a lot of kids, the misconception is they want to roll over the ball, right? So they crank this wrist back to do that. The problem is when you roll your wrist like this, you can't go under, and that's the big strength of neutral grip. So what you want is you want your hand nice and vertical. You want your wrist vertical, and you want to hold the stick real tight in your finger knuckles, okay? Because when you hold your stick tight here on the whistle, you make a fist, and you can go into your rake real quick. Boom, okay? That's our trick. That's what we've been teaching guys for years. Boom. So the smaller motor units, you want to hold this real tight. They're going to fire, and that's faster than trying to roll your wrist and rake, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is if everybody's going standing neutral grip, then this face-off becomes way more of a dynamic rock, paper, scissors game than ever. Because at least when I go against a guy who's Moto Grip, I know he's going to try to go over the top. He has to. So for me, I know I can get underneath, and I'm going to use these bottom sidewall variations. However, if I go against another standing neutral grip guy, you have the ability to go over and under. That's why we love this stance, okay? So if I lined up against Jerry, and the two face-offs before that, first he went rake, then he went plunger or clamp, then that means now I have to guess which one he's going to do. Because if we both do the same move, we're going to end up in a lockup. I know that's the whole committee's, goal with SNG was to get rid of lockups. The problem is nobody on the committee has ever faced off, and they don't understand that if we're both SNG, then we're going to end up in lockups anyway if we both go top sidewall. So it becomes rock, paper, scissors game, and way more strategic, way more fun in my opinion, but that's just the way it's going to be. So we call the right foot the plant foot. The right foot, all of its weight is bared on the right leg. We want most of our weight on that right foot. It should be flat on the ground and 6 inches behind your right hand. The left foot should be lined up. That left heel is off the ground, and that's our drive foot that we're going to drive in and push with, okay? So that's that's the basics of the stance. And that's if you go to the Beast Lab video, at the very beginning of the chat, scroll to the top, the first video link that I posted explains the very basics of the stance and what we're looking for, okay? In that video, I had just had my first kid, and I have a monster midlife crisis beard, so please don't judge me. Just try to focus strictly on the technique. Okay.
I say bring it back.
Okay, so when we go over our warm-up, the warm-up right now, if you go on the Beast Lab playlist, we have our warm-up based on knee-down stances. We're going to create a new video at the end of this week, and we'll post it, that has more of a SNG focused warm-up, but the nuances and the verbiage is still the same. So the warm-up will basically consist of quick chops just to get the hands firing, okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to work on our first move. So our first move options, and we'll go down that list soon, is going to be quick clamp, left hand stays low, power clamp coming around the ball, and then a clamp plunger. So you're going to roll first as you plunger. So you're trying to go for an over-the-top sidewall dominant squeeze on the ball, so you end up over it like this, okay? That's our first moves. And then we have our bottom sidewall dominant moves. Our bottom sidewall dominant move is a quick rake where we make that fist and we pull to the left. A power rake where we literally drive into the opponent's pocket, lock him up, and then rip the ball out. And we have a bottom sidewall dominant plunger where we actually push our right hand in and we lip the ball up on the bottom sidewall and squeeze it here and pull out, okay? And that works really good against someone rolling over the top. So those are what we would do, 5 of each of those. And then we would work on our second move, the saw downs. The first one is saw down and finish. So we get to the ball, saw real quick the left hand, pull the ball out. Then we would go saw down with a peel off. So we have the saw down, we have a little bit less than half the ball, then we're going to throw this left hand around and then rip the ball out. And then we have saw down, and then we notice that we don't have any of the ball, and we go belly to helmet where we immediately step to the right, okay? So that's our warm-up, and that's what we focus on. Now, knee-down face-offs require way more work for 50-50 work because your footwork has to be so in line like a wrestler because you got to get up. Standing neutral grip doesn't require as much 50-50 work because if you only have a slight piece of the ball, you go for your rip and then you go belly to helmet and you just box out because you're already on your feet. Jared, did I miss anything for the warm-up portion?
No, but I also, for you coaches that are working with guys who haven't done this for the first time, I think it's very important that you settle their nerves and let them know that these moves are very similar to what they're currently doing. That warm up is basically exactly the same as the knee down, which we would have gone over this week had the rules not changed. So there's going to be a lot of you having to calm guys down, in these next couple weeks, I guess, as guys are starting to digest this information. So again, just let them know that this is very similar to what they've always been doing on a knee, but now we're just adding that standing component and you're able to get into that belly to helmet much faster. And a lot of guys are hesitant to go into the belly to helmet because you've technically lost the face off, but even though you didn't actually lose anything, you just lost the initial clamp, as we know that the ground ball secure is the win. So that just puts them into that ground ball situation a little bit faster.
Yeah. And just real quick, a question just popped in from Micah. We will go over knee down next week if we have some more clarity. Our goal is if we get any clarity as to whether these are experimental rules, if they say they're experimental or they're reassessing them, or if there's another vote and they're like, okay, never mind, we're backtracking, we'll jump right into knee down. If the only reason we wouldn't go over knee down next week is if they basically tell us that this is it, that's the ruling, no more knee down. Okay, so we'll go over it if there's any chance that it still exists next week. Okay, so after we have our warm up, which once again, we will be sending you guys a video once we have it done next week. We'll send a video out to everybody on the registration list so you see what this warm up would look like. We're going to go over our offensive moves. So offensive first moves, top sidewall dominant, like we said. We have our quick clamp, power clamp, and our clamp plunger. The reason we call it a clamp plunger is because there's a slight different nuance to it. We never used to call it that when we were on a knee, but because it's all SNG, we want to make sure guys know the difference. So a quick clamp, standing neutral grip, means the left hand stays low. Any clamp variation means the left hand's going to stay on the ground. The right hand always has the same job, even when it was on knee down or if it's standing neutral grip. And your goal is to make your ball stop, hit the ball, okay? So a top sidewall dominant move, whether it's a clamp or a plunger, the goal is to always make the ball stop, hit the ball. So guys need to be super loaded and that right elbow should be bent. Now, the cool thing we don't have to worry about standing neutral grip is what we had to worry about with knee down, which everybody had elbow flare. And on the whistle, their elbow would move first and then they'd clamp. And we spent years trying to get rid of that for everybody. Here, that's literally a physical impossibility because that would mean you'd require to do this, which would be so weird and unnatural. So all we want guys to do is have a firm grip here and then get ready to just punch that right hand in. Now, the top sidewall dominant portion of this is you're going to roll this wrist as well. You're going to come over the top. Okay, and as you do it on the quick clamp, the left hand's going to barely cross the midline, stay on the ground, and then you're going to finish, boom, over the top. Okay, and the goal is to bring your helmet and your body with you. What you're going to notice, especially for kids who haven't done SNG before and they're all knee down, is you're going to see, because they're not used to being comfortable in this stance, their hips are going to go up and away right away. Okay, so what we tell our guys is when you're getting loaded in this stance, the only, in my opinion, the only detriment or negative about the stance is it can tire you out because you're not just sitting on a knee. So while the ref is setting the ball down, while he's adjusting you and doing all that, you have to make sure, I tell guys just to bounce a little bit in your stance so you're not static. And then once they say set, you load yourself and then drive. Okay. Jared, do you have anything on top of the quick clamp?
Just really driving home that left foot is going to be kind of part of your power source. Too many guys have their feet too in close in their stance and they just kind of like snap at the ball. Make sure you're using that. We call it a drive foot for a reason. We want you driving into the ball with that on any quick clamp scenario or any clamp scenario for that matter, just as you would on the knee down. A lot of this stuff is going to overlap because we're approaching the ball the same exact way. And again, for you coaches, you need to drive home to your younger athletes or athletes that are having trouble digesting this information, that this is still very much the same thing that they are already currently doing, just with two slight variations just in your as on the lineup.
Yeah, absolutely. So then quick clamp, driving that top sidewall over the ball. After you have the quick clamp, then we go power clamp. So what you'll notice is some guys maybe they're good at just punching into the ball here. So what you would do is you'd line up, and in order to peel them off the ball and use your physicality, some of these stronger face-off guys, on the whistle, as you drive in, you just swing this left hand all the way to 12 o'clock. You come down over the ball and you follow with your eyeballs around the ball to 12 o'clock. And then as your hands finish here, you swing your legs around. That's when you finish your clamp, and then you lock it and exit. Now, in traditional rules committee form, we have this vague thing about not letting guys clamp too long. We have no clue what that means. No idea. Because you're only supposed to have one step anyway right now. That's enforced 10% of the time as it is. So we're not exactly sure what that means or what they're going to do with it. In the meantime, we want to make sure guys understand, get your clamp, get out. Now, that's going to be so much faster and easier with SNG, so it won't be an issue. So that's our power clamp coming around, and the whole goal is to peel your opponent's head back by driving into the ball and throwing your weight into it. Guys who were knee down guys and were good at it, if they had a wrestling background, find out, because they'll naturally be able to transfer their weight from their feet to their hands and back. This power clamp won't be an issue. Now, the clamp plunger. The clamp plunger, when you're lined up, your goal is to get this top sidewall, this bottom string hole, over the ball. And as you do it, at the same time as you do that, your left hand's going to come straight up in front of your shoulder. Not into your armpit, not wrapping your hand around, but straight up and out. Okay? So right here, right up to your shoulder and about 6 inches in front. And the right hand's job is to roll over the ball and extend and lock out. Okay? That's what a lot of us did, especially back in, like, I would say like 2006, 2005 time. Okay? When I was in college, that's what everyone was trying to do, was to bring that left hand up to squeeze the ball and roll over the top of the ball. Now, here's the caveat. A lot of people were saying this on Twitter, and it wasn't correct, is that all you need to do really in order to study this is to just look at old films of guys back in like the late 90s and early 2000s. That's not reality, because when we were playing in college, the ball was here. And the referees were like 5 yards behind us, down, set whistle, and all we were doing was throwing that left hand. Face-offs before the 2014 rule change, where they put the ball in the middle and they put it down second, that's the day that face-offs went from 90% left hand to 90% right hand, because you had to get that head all the way down here. So that's not really the truth, because if you see videos of guys throwing their left hand out there all the time, if you throw your left hand all the time right here on the whistle, you're going to get beat forward. So just be cognizant of that, because a lot of things have changed. Jared, is there any difference or anything you want to add to that plunger, clamp plunger?
Yes, what you're going to run into with a lot of guys who are not used to this move is just they're going to bring their thumb to their armpit and they're going to say, "Coach, this isn't working." If you do not extend that left hand, there's no juice knocking your opponent's stick back. So if a guy is equally strong top rail as you, he's going to push you back immediately. So same thing when we are doing clamps on a knee, again, to go back to this is all kind of overlapping, is if you don't throw that left hand, that top rail is going to get pushed back by a guy who gets his glove in any capacity underneath yours. So you have to throw that left hand. Again, we're not throwing it to 12 o'clock like we would a power clamp. We're just getting it out about 6 inches so we can grab a piece of that ball, be underneath our opponent's plastic, and be ready to rip upfield for that fast break.
Yeah. Someone asked, starting a corkscrew. I'm not sure what that is. But we teach the saw down and the screw drill, and that's what we've been teaching since 2012. So, those are the things that we focus on. I think you just answered the question about armpit or out. So
just to touch base on one more thing there. The reason why we don't do that is because when you pull out and you keep it underneath your armpit, you will tend to sweep over the ball as opposed to pushing the ball forward, and you'll take a step and the ball will already be behind you. So that's another reason why that's detrimental.
Yeah, let's just pretend like you're looking at an aerial view of a face-off. Would it be this way? Would it be this way? Who cares? Okay, so an aerial view of a face-off, and you're watching the top of the head of the stick. If you bring your left hand into your body and your armpit, you're actually going to be forcing the weak part of the plastic into the ball, and that's real easy to bend back. Okay, you want basically those bottom two string holes and down is where you want to get the ball to. So by throwing your left hand in front of you just a little bit, you end up getting the ball into the hard part of the plastic, and you will peel someone's stick back. That's the whole idea behind the power clamp, is to peel that person's stick back. So if you do this and bring your left hand in, you're forcing the scoop and the weak top 2/3 of the plastic into the ball, and you're going to get crushed. Okay, so that's why we do that. Now, bottom sidewall dominant. Bottom sidewall dominant has its own variations. So let's just go over the plunger first and the difference behind that. So a clamp plunger, you're going to roll the top sidewall over the ball as you lift your left hand. Okay? A true plunger is when you lift your left hand straight up on the whistle, and all you do is just drive into the ball, and the ball actually lips up underneath this bottom sidewall, and it gets squeezed in between the plastic. So you never roll your wrist on this. And it worked phenomenally against moto grip. But against a standing neutral grip guy, it's either a game of speed to the ball first, or you're going to be going against a guy who's really good at coming over the top. So this way, the reason this always worked, and this is what I used almost exclusively in 2017 in the MLL, and the reason it works so good is because everybody was moto, everybody tried to roll over the top, and all I had to do was get to the ball, and they would literally push the ball into my stick, and it would lip up underneath this bottom sidewall. So even when it looked like I had like 1/3 of it, it was still a true fast break, because once you got to it, it was like ripping the carpet out from under somebody and just popping the ball forward. Okay. Now, we do a ripcord drill on a knee down. We also do it standing neutral grip. The ripcord, we have two drills, really. We have our hand punch drill and moto grip. We were on a knee. You'd put like a hard object, whether it's a kettlebell, sandbag, or whatever, have your glove on, and we had kids learning to get rid of this rollover method to just punch the motion. So now what we do is the same thing. You would have your glove in your hand, and all you would do is just punch into it real quick and just tap whatever you're trying to do so you can work on the speed of this motion, because this is everything. And then the left hand, we'd have the ripcord drill, where you would just hold your stick down against the ground and then bring your left hand up as fast as you can to train this. Because on impact, when you get to the ball, the higher the left hand comes, the more this top sidewall dips down, and the better the chance of cutting underneath your opponent's top sidewall. Jared, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that was well done.
Thank you. Awesome. I've been practicing. So that's the first thing, is the bottom sidewall dominant true plunger. Then after we do that, then we get to the rake variations. Now the rake variations, if everybody's SNG, this is where this whole thing is going to actually be super fun to watch and analyze in game. Because if Jerry beats me over the top 2 or 3 times in a row, if everybody's SNG, and I know face-off guys don't want to hear me say this, But if everybody's SNG, face-offs are going to have to be super strategic, and there's no way a guy can do the same move an entire game and win, because at some point he's going to have to use his bottom sidewall, because if Jerry beats me 3 times in a row the same way, that means I can go quick rake underneath him and pull the ball out. And like we said, it's true rock, paper, scissors. If all things are even, hand speed wise, rock, paper, scissors is going to win. So you got to make sure that you understand how to do this. So the variations are this. Quick rake, I'm going to have my left hand here, and on the whistle, I make my fist, and I immediately pull to the left. And what I'm trying to do is catch that ball right in the flare of the lacrosse stick, so that I can get that ball and angle it to the left. And at the same time, with my left hand, I'm going into my hip. So I'm getting the ball, and the reason I bring my left hand up and into my hip is because as it drags against the ground, you get this little ricochet. You get the plastic to bend just a little bit, and it actually flings that ball out from underneath the opponent, okay? Some guys try to put it through their legs, and you might get a piece of it that way, but now you got to run after a ball, and it's super awkward. So what you want to do is you want to pull that left hand to the hip, boom, and hit the ball here. Your whole body weight and speed rips it out from underneath your opponent, and you're off to the races. The power rake is totally different. The power rake is the same first move, but when you do it right, if you're going against an opponent who either does a true plunger, okay, or he's good at coming over the top, you do this bottom sidewall motion, you make your fist, and you actually push the ball and you wedge it right into the middle of their stick. And what happens is your sidewall ends up here, and they can't clamp down all the way. And then once they freeze, this space opens up under the scoop, and you go here, then you rip right through their stick, okay? So the power rake is boom, boom, 2 separate parts, and it works beautifully. Especially if you're going against an opponent with a floppier head. If you can get your sidewall right in their mesh, you can rip the ball right through that plastic. Jer, anything to add to that?
Yeah, and the reason why that move has a very high success rate against the clamp is not just because you are catching an opponent that's going down into the ground as you're coming up. You can actually be a little bit slower of a hand speed guy because he's coming down basically into your trap. Now you have him hooked. But what every face-off guy is taught on a knee against a standing neutral grip guy is to push down the line. Now you're basically just taking his momentum and dragging him even further down the line till his arm completely locks out, and then the ball just shoots out 2 feet for an easy ground ball, and that guy's eating a bowl of turf.
Yeah. So those are the bottom sidewall dominant methods, and those are the basics of each of those. And like I've said before, we're going to make a whole series of videos on our social media this week on my on the Greg Beast 32 on Instagram, Jerry's is Flogo 37, and the Face Off Academy. One word is our Instagram for FOA. We'll be posting what we call DODs, drill of the days, and we're going to start segmenting this stuff so kids can see which drills to work on as we go, and we want to make sure it's well illustrated for people. So we'll be doing that. We're going to start tomorrow. The first post will be the quick clamp. It will move from there. Now, our third column, if you will, would be the defensive moves. And defensive moves from a standing neutral grip are way more dynamic, obviously, because you're already on your feet. So we have kind of our cornerstones of our 3 different types of defensive moves. So the first one is the shovel counter. The shovel counter attacks the left hand. So if I'm going against Jerry and I notice on every single motion he does, he never keeps his left hand low and everything he does is up here. On the whistle, I'm going to step my right foot right past the head of my stick. I'm not going to drop step. I'm going to step right past the head of my stick towards the midline, and I'm going to come straight up under his left hand and lift. Okay, so as he goes for the plunger, I lift, ball falls out, and then I just turn and box. This is exactly the move you want to have. And I know we mentioned this in week 1, where you have like your starter, your secondary guy, and then either an LSM or that midfielder that you know is super athletic and understands this position. This would be his time to shine. An LSM, especially in the standing neutral grip world, and we always kind of laughed about it because in the pros, I would always go standing neutral grip and just go plunger and go forward on everybody. And none of them at any time ever thought to just step to the right and lift my left hand up. Okay, I'm retired now, so they had their chance. But the reality of it is all they had to do was just step right in front of me and go right here. Okay, so that's your first option, is to attack that left hand. Any nuances to that, Jer?
When you are attacking that left hand, make sure you start low. I see a lot of guys who miss, and they wind up in that kind of like that no man's land in between the armpit and the shaft. You can't lift up under his arm because now it's a hold. So what I recommend is guys keeping their hands low to the ground. I call it scraping the dirt with your knuckles. Shoot directly underneath, then come straight up, because now you have momentum that's disrupting the move, and you can continue up to basically lift your opponent off the ground and putting that ball on the ground immediately.
Hey guys,
and do that box out.
Absolutely.
Hey guys.
Sorry, did you hear that?
Yes.
I'm bringing up my video for the LSM. I'm gonna post this for you guys on here. I'm putting it in the chat. I think I might have posted it last time too, but just so you know, that's the LSM face-off video that we created a while ago. It's the literal basics. Any LSM can watch that and have a very good understanding of what's expected of them. So we have that shovel counter. Now that's a left-handed counter. We're going after the left hand. The other counter that we've been teaching since, this has been around forever. I think Justin Berry actually did this to me. That's how long ago this was. So this is called the fish hook. So on the whistle, and I have a video of this, and I'll post it. On the whistle, you're going to let go of your left hand off the stick. And what your goal is to get underneath an opponent who's really good at coming over the top and clamping here. And what you're going to do is, as they lift their left hand, you're going to dive underneath, and you're going to dive with your left hand hits the ground, and your right hand comes underneath, almost elbow deep underneath where their stick is. Okay, so my opponent goes here, my right hand goes right underneath, my left hand goes to the ground. Now we put it to the ground for two reasons. One, when you do this move and it works, the entire team's sideline that you're playing against is going to scream that you're using your offhand. Okay, if your left hand's on the ground, you can't possibly be using it. The other reason is because it's a lot easier to dive and transfer your weight to your hands so you can rotate around than it is to try to do this one-handed. It's very hard. So what we're going to do is we're going to let go with our left hand. Right hand comes underneath our opponent's stick. And then as soon as we get here, all we do is pull right back across to the left side of our body. And what happens is, as they go here, our right glove comes under their right glove. And then the head of our stick and the throat of our stick literally lifts their stick right here, and the ball comes out. Okay? If you do it right, you can almost create a fast break for yourself right out of this move, because they pop the ball forward for you. Now, this move is completely legal. It's no different than lifting a person's stick on a ground ball. But because it requires you to dive underneath the guy, and because it's effective, the other team is going to freak out. So just be ready for that, and make sure you can explain it to the officials in case it happens too quick. Do you have anything to add to the fish hook, Jer?
So we should kind of talk about how to get out of that. It's not necessarily you want to lift your opponent off the ground. That is part of it. But the second part is he's on the ball for too long. He can't get away from you, so he's sitting there moving his feet too many times. The whole time that you are underneath that guy's his left hand, you should be screaming, withholding, 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 because one of two things has happened. One, he's going to try and push it through your left arm, and the ball is going to remain on the ground. He's going to panic. Or two, the referee is going to call him for taking too many steps, and you're going to be awarded the ball. Yeah. And again, this is a car. We call this a car crash move because it never looks pretty. It's not like a clean pinch and pop. Where you're like, oh, he got him. It's a mess. People are tripping over one another, but the ball is on the ground.
Yes. And what I'm doing right now is I created a video about almost exactly a year ago, and it's called Pure Counters 2, and all it was is an entire video of counters for SNG. So all of them are right there. I just sent the link in the chat, and that way you know that. Coach Colby actually has a good point here. When you guys are doing the fish hook, you can't, or any move, and there's a reason we don't do any of these other counters. There are people out there that have been teaching the arm rip, where you literally come around the guy and you pull him by the arm. That's not legal, okay? And every time someone asks, is that legal or not, just ask yourself, would that be legal in any other ground ball situation? And it usually explains it very clearly for you. So if I'm playing defense, I can't reach inside of a guy's arm and just wrench his arm. Okay, same thing here. I can't come around and lift the guy's arm. So you got to be very cognizant of that. When you do the fish hook and you come underneath, you either want to come straight up and lift his stick in general with your arms, or you want to come around and pull back across your body so all you're taking with you is the head of their stick. But if you hit their wrist or their arm, then yes, you can be called for a hold for sure, especially if they hold onto the stick and you yank them. Okay, so that's a good point, Colby. And then the final one, and the one we try to get guys to do most, is our belly to helmet. And you know, we posted a video of it before. Jerry, you want to talk about the belly to helmet idea on this? Because this is a first move right on the whistle. You're not even going to go for the clamp. Zach Currier actually used to do this when he was facing off in college, and it was very effective. So Jerry, you want to do that, and I'll find the video.
Sure. Yeah. So the belly to helmet, again, there is an ego to this move that you need to put down in your athletes, because you are saying, hey guys, you are going to give up the clamp. You are going to abandon your initial move. That's hard for some guys to stomach. So you really need to drive that home. You're saying, hey, on the initial whistle, this guy's been crushing you. Let's go belly to helmet, or let's practice just you losing the clamps. You immediately step down the line, put your belly button where his helmet is. And then you just, if he rotates, you just rotate around the circle with him. Now, if he moves his feet once, he's stuck. And it's much easier for you as a standing person to play a guy who's on all fours and he has to pop the ball. Because the second he starts coming up, I can start putting my hands near his chest. The second he pops that ball, I can push him off. That ball continues on the same trajectory that he was throwing it. And now it's his shoulder versus mine, but I'm already in front. So this is where your athletes get to really shine. Again, going back to Zach Currier, I think Zach Currier won 5 clamps his entire career. He faced off at 52%. Why? Because he was standing the entire time outside the video of him doing a 2-finger move, which is illegal. Because someone is going to put that in the chat eventually. But the reason why he was so dominant is because he was just on his feet and he's a gifted athlete. He could just run the ball down where most guys were just popping into space. You go, okay, well, he's just putting the ball that was here and he's moving it over here. If I can beat him to there, why wouldn't I win the faceoff? That's all we are really doing. So make sure we are stepping down the line, putting the weight on the balls of our feet. Too many guys do this and they kind of sit back, giving the guy who has the clamp the opportunity to throw a shoulder fake or just read that position and go the opposite direction. You have to be expecting that this guy's going to try and bait you one way or another. Read his chest. Wherever his chest goes, the ball normally goes unless he pops it through his legs. So make sure you step down the line, keep your hands low, getting ready for them to come up on the exit to body your opponent out. Again, this is where you can put a physical, gifted, you got a running back that likes facing off. That's where you want to put him. Clang and bang, knock the guy off the ball, pick it up, play the game.
Absolutely. And as far as we understand, the rules will be the same. You clamp, you get 1 step to exit. So belly to helmet's going to work really well. And honestly, belly to helmet is going to be the king of counters when you're going SNG versus SNG, especially with us spaced off the line. We've literally never had a situation where everyone was facing off, standing up with the new spaced out rules from 2014 when they were enacted. So, you know, that was definitely a year the rules committee got things right. So that's why we're kind of like, we don't want to give them too much crap yet until we try this out. Let's see. So real quick, how would you face off if you know your opponent will fish hook? That's a great question, Mike. So the key to being able to apply a fish hook to somebody is that their left hand's coming up on the whistle. The best way to just stuff somebody. So if Jerry does a fish hook to me, the next time I come out, instead of lifting my left hand, all I do is keep my left hand low and I go quick clamp. Boom. And then what he does is he goes for it and he gets stuffed. His head hits here, his hand's on the ground, he's stuck. That's when I just put the ball through my legs, turn and go, or I can go into the 270, that defensive turn that we're going to go over in a minute, okay? So good question, but that's part of this rock, paper, scissors, right? If those counters are prevalent, everyone's on their feet, this is a severe way to this is real strategy. You have to be thinking a couple face-offs ahead. If I want to set Jerry up for a fish hook and I know we're close, we're up by 1, but there's a chance I might need it in overtime, maybe I go with a rake And then if we end up tied and go to overtime, I bust this fish hook out because it's not a move you can do over and over again unless your opponent is completely clueless and doesn't realize he needs to keep his left hand low. So now what I want to do is go over the exits. And I posted the last link I just sent in there is our FOA official warm-up as it stands now, but the exits are the same. So our exits are left shoulder is an offensive exit, okay? When you go pinch and pop, anytime you pull the ball to your left shoulder, regardless of where you are on the field, that's why we call it this, because we want people to watch the face-off guy, and it makes it easy for the face-off guy to tell guys where the exits are going to be based on where your body is, okay? It makes it very simple that way. So an offensive exit is to the left shoulder. A back door exit is to the right shoulder. So the offensive or front door is left, back door is right. Defensive is always counterclockwise. So any counterclockwise motion into your exit is what we call a defensive turn or a defensive exit. And then the fourth exit is TTL, through the legs, which we've been trying to get kids to do more of over the years. With SNG, they're going to have to be able to do this. So that's a good thing. So what we're going to do is go over those, how you would do those exits right now. So, if you're going rake or you're going pinch and pop or anything, after a lockup, you finish your saw down, you pull it out to your left side, okay? Going out to the right, what we do is we get here. When you go out to the right, you have to roll your wrist back while the head is still connected to the ground to keep your bend. Roll your wrist, and then you step to the right and pop it out to your right shoulder. The TTL, we always want to lock the ball. Guys will keep their left hand low too, and they'll go TTL. The problem is when your left hand stays low and the head is like this, that means the ball is between the mesh and the grass. So as you pull it, it can slide anywhere in here and get caught up. So every exit, we always want guys to lock it, which means you lift your left hand to pinch the ball. That way it's very accurate and you can put it and pinpoint it, okay? Now, you have two different styles of defensive turn. The true defensive turn and defensive exit means your left hand stays on the ground, you crank it back, okay? Then you swing your feet around and get out of there. A 270 is what we call a plunger version of that. So you would have the ball, left hand's up. You're going to crank your left hand back into your body, and your right hand basically acts as a tripod. And you spin all the way around, and when your feet land, you keep going, and it turns you 270 degrees, okay? Jared, do you want to add to that? I can post a 270 video on here.
Yeah, I think the 270 is going to be the defensive exit of choice, just because you are on your feet. The reason why the regular defensive exit is more popular on a knee is because you already have all four limbs on the ground between your toes and your hands. When you are standing up, it actually is a little bit more cumbersome to put your hand back on the ground because our left hand is kind of our launch pad to swing our feet. So the 270 is probably going to be the one you guys want to work on the most. And again, it's all about keeping that weight over that right hand as you rotate. If you bring your head off the ball, you're going to slide back and release that ball. So you got to make sure the guys are keeping their body still over the top of the rock.
Colby, this is a video and it's mirrored, so it looks like I'm holding it left-handed. So thanks. So those are the four variations of turns. So I'm going to get real quick because I missed a couple questions. At the high school level, how should we be focusing on the development of our face-off guys with the rules passed? Should we just have them focus on winning face-offs? Yes. So great question. So obviously your first job as a coach is to win games, right? Now, if you are playing in the Interac or the Founders League, or is the MIAA NCAA rules too?
That is a great question. I thought they switched a while back, but
what you do is you check your league. Obviously you would know better than I would, coach, but when you check your league to see if they duplicate the NCAA rules, and there's plenty out there that do, and if they do, then you go immediately to the NCAA rules. I think the top levels of Texas follow NCAA as well. So you're going to follow that, because the reason we're not throwing a whole bunch of stuff out there yet, and we're kind of giving it to you guys first, is because we don't know if these are going to be experimental or if they're going to be rule of law. And if they go straight into rules and they are written down and this is what they're doing, then we're going to act accordingly. Now, If I'm a high school coach, I'm trying to win. So if I have a knee down guy who's dominating on knee, my goal is for him to continue to work on his standing neutral grip, because he should anyway. And then we will continue to do what works on game day. But when kids are going out and playing club ball, or they're going to recruiting events, we're going to literally tell them what we told them when they changed the rules in 2014. If you guys are, hey, you're allowed to hold the ball in the back of the stick, that's great. One more year in high school. But on your college recruiting video, it's not going to help you at all. So you have to show that you can do this with NCAA rules. So if kids are out there, they just have to understand that if they're going to go out there and face off on a knee, that's great. But none of those wins are going to be used on their recruiting video. And that is exactly what coaches are going to be looking for immediately, because this is an arms race. And this is why we're doing this now. And we're talking about, we have levels. We have the kids we've been working with for 8 years that have been listening to us and practicing everything. And they're like, this is awesome. Let's go. You have the second level of kids who were stubborn, didn't want to listen. Now they're kind of freaking out, and now they're hustling to try to catch up. Then you have the kids we've never met before who have no clue how to do this for the most part, unless they've watched our videos. And then we have the kids who are LSMs that are just salivating because they're like, it's go time for me, so I'm going to get in on this. So that's where we're trying to help right now. Could you guys send out an email, which counter goes against which move? Micah, just look at the Pure Counters video, explains it in there, okay? When you go TTL, how far out should you throw the ball? Well, that depends on your target. So we have two different versions, right? We have a self-pop TTL where you throw it, turn your left shoulder, and go and scoop. And you would use that in the case of, they're locking your wings off and you're forcing your wings upfield to give you space, turn and get it yourself. Or you use your wing, and that's completely up to where the wing's going to be. We're going to go over wing play, by the way. We're either going to do knee down next week based on the rules, or we can go wing play if the rules are going to solidify as SNG. But we'll send an email out this week and let you guys know that. MIAA is NCAA rules. Okay, thanks, Coach. Yeah, so that's what's going to happen then. If they make it a rule, then the MIAA will follow suit. Any advantage to specific head with SNG? Yes, so we're getting that question all day. And I'll say my opinion first, and then Jerry can say his. A face flex head, which is a CEO or a CEO2, bends this way. So it bends this way. And that's why you see a lot of these heads that look like soup ladles, because the head's forward that way. Those are by far the hardest heads to go SNG with, because you need the bottom sidewall to wrap under the ball. And if the whole thing peels back, it's not effective on a lot of variations for standing neutral grip. The Warrior Burn is like a slight step up on that, because one of the sidewalls is more straight, but the face flex heads are going to be kind of phased out if it goes SNG. Now, if you don't want a really floppy head, because then you can't rake really well because it just bends back, and you can get raked very well because when you go to clamp and I rake, I can push right through your head. So we're telling guys that you actually want a head that's got a little bit more stiffness to it. And, I think if I had to make a list, I would say that the East Coast Dies Natty, the natural version that just came out, is actually a softer version of the Weapon X. And the Weapon X head was pretty stiff. So this is softer. And it's got a full offset. So it basically is a normal MIDI head with a shorter throat. That's the best in my opinion. The second one could be the Mark IIF stiff. The original version is going to be too soft for this situation for most guys. But the stiff might have a chance to be very formidable. So those would be the two that I would recommend at the top of my list. Jerry, what do you think?
I'll echo that strictly because of the bottom rail of the Weapon X, just how it's designed not to bend. So if you are using bottom rail techniques, this head was built around kind of our training system. So it gives you that ability to knock that ball out. But also if you do go for that top rail, pinch and pop or clamp, it is still designed for the knee down face off athlete from the top and the SNG from the bottom. Again, the 2F, a great face off head. The originals are just far too soft when it gets warm. In the wintertime, they could probably get away with it, but come the spring, you can just slap right through it. So the stiff will be the best 1A, 1B punch, so to speak. Some guys have been asking that are LSMs, can I just use a defensive head? I would not recommend that because there does need to be a little bit of a flick action on the bottom rail technique stuff. And if you do go top rail, if you go out there with a hammer or an SDX hammer, which is like the I guess one of the more popular defenseman heads, that guy knows you are not coming with the top rail technique, so he can scout you off of that. So you kind of have to be able to show that you have the capability of doing both a top rail maneuver and a bottom rail maneuver for him to have to respect you.
Yeah, and the original Weapon X is even stiffer than the Natty. And a lot of my LSMs that work at my draw days really like that because it feels exactly like a regular head, just that the throat's a little shorter. So, if you're an LSM, I would say try that. But then also, we've said this before, you can rake really well with a stiff defensive head. You can totally go belly to helmet and do all the counters as an LSM. But the one thing, like Jerry said, is you're limiting yourself, and the guy you're going against is going to know right away that you're not going over the top. So that's the only thing that you're taking away from your repertoire. So, it's up to you totally. Does S&G have to be right? Okay. So I knew this question was going to come. So the question is does S&G have to be this, or can it be this? Now, that we don't know. I'm going to assume they're going to say your right hand has to be facing the line. But who knows? And if you want to try facing off like this, go for it. Just know that you still have to be standing. So you're basically taking away any option of doing this. And if you line up like this, I'm going to know that you're coming over the top. So you've made my scout very, very simple. I knew someone was going to ask about that.
OG Blade, don't use it.
Yeah, I don't think you can anyway. Well, I don't think it's legal. Oh, yeah, you can. They made the Blade OG.
Yeah, college specs.
It's not anywhere close to as effective as all these other heads right now. In fact, also, some of my guys have been trying out different heads, and they said that the original duel isn't bad for the pinch and bottom sidewall variations because it's got a very thin bottom sidewall. I just don't know if they're still making the original. This is great. Chris says that the rules committee is supposed to make their formal announcement tomorrow. Thanks for that insight. We'll see. What is the best move to beat a great knee down exit forward guy while doing S&G? Since PA high school will still have knee down next season. So Albie, the standing neutral grip, pure plunger, the bottom sidewall dominant plunger is like lights out against knee down guys. It's what I've been using for years. It's what I used all through 2017. So that would be my number one move, especially if you're going against a guy who's quick with his hands and he does the click and drag move where he stays on his knee and just tries to pop it. He's essentially using his bottom sidewall to get in and out. So if you go standing neutral grip against him, you completely steal his advantage, and now he's in trouble. Okay. With the true plunger, is it still important to throw the left hand? That's actually a great question. So the true plunger, any plunger variation, you want the left hand to come up and out just a little bit, okay? You do not want your left hand to throw to 12 o'clock like Jerry mentioned earlier, because now you're completely taking away the advantage of getting into the ball and under it. If you come all the way around here, you're not going to be able to get all the way to the throat. You're actually going to open up the front door exit. Jerry, do you have anything to add to that?
I think against different guys, you're going to see what give you get. Some guys are going to be super hard down the line, so your left hand extending will flare their stick back. Some guys will be very short, so you're going to want to match that as well. So again, it's going to be different every time. But the only consistent is that right hand getting into the ball as hard as you possibly can, give it with that strong, basically thumb knife underneath your opponent's head.
Yeah. Now, someone just asked, how can you generate the most power going standing neutral grip? This is all training, right? So the training involved is to train this right hand punch. And that's why we back that right knee, that right foot off the line, because a lot of guys put their right foot right up against the back of their glove and close their hips off, so they're turning away. But you want that right foot about 6 inches behind your right glove, so that you can square up, because once you're square, now you're using your chest and your anterior delt and you're firing in, and that's what you want. But you have to train those muscles. So we have, Jared, are there still rep straps in stock?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm putting a link up here. There's a training device that Jerry and I actually created a few years ago called the rep strap. And what you do is you wrap it around your waist, and then we have bungees from the back that attach to an anchor, and they Velcro around your wrists. And our guys use that to train their muscles. It's just, like anything else, right? You're a running back. You want to do your squat so you're more explosive when you get the ball. Same thing with here. Get the technique down right. Then once you have the technique down right, then we add resistance to train those muscles to fire faster and harder on the whistle. It's never been a more useful device than now, because this is going to be the move that dominates if this rule goes through. So that's the first thing. You also have the hand punch drill that we mentioned, just punching into the sandbag. Then we have the ripcord drill where you're pulling this left hand up, and those muscles are all firing at the same time. You got yourself a really fast, powerful plunger.
And guys, one more thing. The reason why we invented the rep strap is to kind of make it actually what we're doing. We're pushing into the ball. If you have a rubber band tied to the top of your stick, you're only acting with this top-down mechanism. That's not how we face off ever. There's never a time where the top rail getting over the ball is how we win, because the ball is now higher in the stick, right? So we have to get down the line. The rep strap is designed to have pressure coming from your hips, so there's resistance coming from down the line and over the top of the ball at the same time, because it anchors from your wrist, not the stick.
Yeah. And then
face off considered over.
Someone just asked, someone broke their left wrist, and how can you get them to keep training? Two things. We ask guys that when they have any kind of injury, right, left leg, and, if you can't hold the stick correctly, don't practice your face-offs if you can't hold the stick right or move correctly or balance your weight right. Because what you're going to create is some kind of weird imbalance that your body's going to do in order to get through it. It's like if your hip hurts and you keep squatting and you end up favoring that hip. Next thing you know, you've created a very weird situation. And if one day your hip's corrected and it's fixed, you still have this super weird imbalance that you're trying to get out of. Same thing here. You can devastate your technique if you force it. Now, one other thing is, because of the rep strap, is one of the reasons we made it. We have kids all the time. They break their hand, they break their wrist or thumb or whatever. You put it around your cast or whatever. Now you can do the same motions. So you might not have your stick, but you can sit there and work on your ripcord drill. You can work on your hand punch with resisted bands. That's not going to hurt your fracture. That's what we really like about it. But if you can't get away with that, then we're just begging you, please don't do anything, because if you try to train through it, one, it's going to last longer, your injury. Two, you're going to have so many weird mechanical issues when you try to get back out there.
Watch film if he can't do it. If he has to do something, just digest film, have him understand kind of the bird's eye view of the face-off position, that he can be better helping out his wings on where to go, understanding what is defensive, what teams he's going to play, etc. That is going to be the best use of his time. Because again, if you're training hurt, you're only training to basically stay hurt once you're healthy.
Andrew asked, are we still teaching kids to step on a 45-degree angle? I'm not sure what you mean by that with the right foot. I know back in the day, they used to tell everybody, throw your left hand to clamp and then step to the right with your right. I never subscribed to that because it made you have weird power going both ways. I preferred to have all my power going in one direction. Now, if you are going to step on the whistle to counter your opponent going forward, you want to do it immediately. And when we go belly to helmet, we don't drop step, because that's all. If you drop step and give your opponent a foot or two, that's all he needs to exit and get out of there on you. So we tell guys to step directly across the line and be ready to lift their left hand, because if you step to the line and don't lift their left hand, you're going to step on their stick. So you want to step across your body, not drop step. That's the worst thing you can do. That's why a lot of LSMs who don't face off have zero success on face off, because they are so used to drop stepping and they give up space. The face-off is considered over after possession. Now, that depends on the coach. Most coaches, especially at the advanced levels, don't consider a face-off over until possession in the box, because then you know you've secured your possession. But the face-off is not over after the clamp. In fact, that's the mindset Jerry and I have been trying to fight for years, because kids practice their clamp on a knee, and then once somebody has the clamp, the other kid gives up. And that's why footwork, honestly, and defensive strategy in college for face-off guys is so abysmal, because most kids don't listen to us and they give up after the clamp. So
who's the kid from Air Force right now? He's a tyrant. What's his name?
Frankhauser? Dylan?
Yeah. So I mean, if any of you coaches want to see how effective this can be, watch his film from the past season, and because he was a 2-foot guy going against standing neutral grip guys and just was a monster. Yeah, he lost clamps, but he was raking, making it hard for him to pick up the ground ball, bodying guys. I mean, that is probably your template for what you're looking for in a standing neutral grip athlete.
Yeah, 100%. Are there nuances that apply to bottom sidewall moves and FIL play versus NCA? Yeah, you know what, Chris? We can totally get into that once we know for a fact that these rules are going to go through, because I don't want to spend a lot of time on that and the differences if this isn't going to be a true rule. However, FIL, the counters are very different, because FIL is literally the worst version of face-off rules you can possibly imagine. The ref stands back, he lines you up, guys are choking up on the plastic literally this high. The ball is like this close, and guys are leaning tight to the ball, and they give what's called a swizzle call. So they go, and when you hear a sound, you go. Sometimes they don't call you for early, sometimes they do. It's a mess. And you can keep the ball in the back of your stick. I think there's a long 4-second count if you do have a clamp. And technically, as far as I know, you can pin the guy's shaft down on the ground. So, yeah, apparently you can stab people in FIL if you want to counter them. But I have no idea if they are going to change that down the line. I hope so. Let's see here. Between sidewall, bottom sidewall, rakes, defensive strategies, what do you believe is the right number of moves to help your athletes develop? We can't stop a person exiting FLL, so they changed that. That's good to know, Pete. Thank you, because that was a terrible rule. It used to be stick on stick was legal, shaft on shaft. They could literally pin your stick. Anyway, Andrew, here's the actual honest answer. We tell our kids that we are going to learn everything. And that's why this Friday, we're literally filming a training video so we can break it down and say, okay, Monday you focus on this, Tuesday focus on this. That way kids have one strategic thing to focus on, just like a strength training program, rather than just telling them to go out and work on everything for an hour and a half a day. So the real answer is, the more you know, the more you can do on game day. But if guys are only working on 1 or 2 things, some guys say have a first move and then have a second move. It's not going to be enough now. If you go standing versus standing, you have to have all your top sidewall dominant moves locked in and all the exits afterwards. Same thing with bottom sidewall. Same thing with using your wings. Same thing with wing strategy. Wing strategy is going to be so important. And that's why we're going to be doing an entire session in this masterclass dedicated to wing strategy, because especially if we have to be standing, it's going to be more important than ever. Okay. And then, I'm going to let Jerry kind of take it from here, but I just want to let you guys know once more, after all 4 sessions are over, okay, after the next 2 weeks, we will then have our film guy edit all of these videos, and we're going to embed them on our website so you guys can view them. And we will send a link out to the entire registration list so that you guys know that's happening when it's happening, so you have first dibs to see it, okay? Thank you for everything tonight. I thought that went really well. Jared, do you have anything to add before we sign off?
No, but just to go back to our basically the start of this is just let your guys know they're going to be okay. Too many guys are like, I'm not going to college anymore. I'm quitting the sport. Obviously this generation is not used to hardship. They need a little bit of coddling, and just let them know, hey, it's going to be fine. Face-offs are still pretty much the same. And any questions you guys have in the meantime, Greg's YouTube page is populated with all this information and more. So be sure to get back to that. And again, guys, any questions you have, that email that we, faceoffacademy@gmail.com. We put that up before, and thank you again, guys. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah. And just one last thing, just let your guys know, people are asking us about the National Showcase and the I-95 Cup.
Oh yeah.
Yes. They are strictly to show off your ability to play in college. So if the rules committee says that these are experimental, we're going to let our guys do whatever they want. But if the rules committee says that these are going to be the rules for college, then we're only allowing standing neutral grip at our recruiting styled events. Okay. All right, guys, have an awesome week. Good luck. Stay safe. And we'll see you next Sunday, hopefully with more clarity. All right. Take care, guys.